This is Ruth Yesair. This is August 17th, 1984. I'm interviewing Charlotte Cooke, who lives
at 35 Main Street in Byfield.
And when were you born, Charlotte?
1919.
And you were telling me about Dr. Orchid. Can you repeat the story? About him driving up in this wonderful sleigh with his raccoon coat.
And his span of Morgan horses.
Morgan horses. Didn't they breed them over there?
Not that I could remember, you know.
Morgans and Orchids had something to do with each other.
Well, over in Rowley, his nephew, somebody is the veterinarian over there.
Yeah.
And now I don't know if they did in West Newbury or not.
I see.
I never knew that much, you know, it's just a little bit of...
How did he get over here from West Newbury?
Thing. He always used to say when he arrived at your house, I came down over Craniac Hill, Hellity Clatter.
That's lovely. And you said
and immediately you felt better.
Oh.
Just to see him.
Oh. How long did he practice in town?
Oh, I have no idea. Till he died.
Which was?
Whenever that was.
You don't know when that was?
Mm-hmm.
No, I've heard about people talking about him for a long time.
Yeah, he was about the only doctor
in this whole area.
In the area. And he would come day or night.
Really?
Wind, hail, or blow, you know, he'd be right there.
And never asked you to come to the office like they do now?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, not many people had cars back then.
Your house, you've always lived in that house, right?
Yeah.
Did your parents ever tell you about how Byfield was when they were growing up here? What was life?
Oh, my father did and my grandfather did, you know.
What did they tell you about?
Well...
What were their names?
Well, my father was Benjamin Hazen. And my grandfather was Rodney.
Hazen.
Rodney Morton.
Rodney Morton. What did they tell you about the town? Remember any of their family stories about Byfield?
Well, I've heard about the poker games.
Poker games? Where were they held?
Down around Great Rock. Over and back. And on a Saturday night, when some of the boys had a good night, they really didn't care about walking home alone. Because, you know, the ones that didn't win would be pretty mad. Now, that could be all a big hush story, too, you know, but I remember them sitting around down the store there.
Yes.
And they'd be telling about the poker games. That, of course, a little bit of a thing, but I can remember it.
Oh, and do you remember the electric cars?
No, they took them off the year I was born.
1919, wasn't it? Yeah. They didn't last very long. Wonder why. How about the trains? Didn't you tell me your father...
No, yes, he used to be station agent. And I have the lantern that he swung down here at the... right by the depot, you know, when he had to stop the traffic.
Yes.
Horses and buggies, probably.
Yeah.
When the trains came.
Do you not have any idea how frequently they came through town?
No, I know they used to come through around 11:30 because I've heard my mother say, well, it's time for the potato train. That meant that you put your potatoes on for dinner.
I heard that one time a very large train from New York City was diverted over here. Do you remember anything like that? Or a circus train?
No, I never remember that.
Never remember that.
No.
You remember the blacksmith shop?
I can remember the people, like my sister Ruth, going to Haverhill High School on the train.
She'd go over there and then back.
Yeah. All the kids did that went to Haverhill High School then.
Why would you go to Haverhill High School and not Newburyport High School?
Because Newburyport wouldn't have us. I went 2 years to Haverhill myself, only I went by bus.
I thought forever the kids in Byfield went to Newburyport?
No.
Oh,
My
that's
sister Ruth
interesting.
graduated from Haverhill High School,
That is interesting.
and I only went 2 years. And then they changed us to Newburyport.
So there was a period of time when they did accept us, and then after a while they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And then they
curious.
did again.
That's curious. I'm surprised that I didn't know. Do you remember? You don't have any idea how frequently they went through town. Were they noisy? Did they blow? You know, their whistles?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No, I
They
have
must
no
have.
idea. I think there was one that went to Newburyport around 7 o'clock at night. Where it came from, I have no idea. In Georgetown, I suppose, in Haverhill. But I can remember that one, and I can remember the potato train.
Yes, that's wonderful. What did Byfield look like in your parents' era? Did they tell you that there were stores here or shoe shops or?
Oh,
what?
yes, and my grandfather. Now, I don't know if he had a shoe shop, or whether he managed it or what, and that was way before the butcher shop and all that, up in the square. Right over in back where Gene Pearson's studio is now.
That was a shoe shop.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was that particular building, but something that my grandfather had something to do with. Probably well, I won't go into that. He was selectman of the town, for 112 years.
We heard that there were bake shops in town.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Where was it located? Who ran it?
Bill Sr.
Bill Sr. What did he specialize in?
Bread.
Bread.
And you know where he used to live and make it at first? You know where Helene McPhail used to live?
Yes.
Up above me there on
Yes.
Main Street?
Yes.
He made it downstairs in that house when he first started out, just for fun.
Uh-huh.
And he was working in the snuff mill at the time. And then it got moved down, well, I would say, in my grandfather's old store. That
Which was
isn't
where?
there now, but it would be like where the fire station is.
Uh-huh. And what did your grandfather sell?
Groceries and meat and
Uh-huh.
so forth. And then I don't know if they were there first and moved over to where Billy Pearson's store was later, or whether it was over here and they moved it and they moved over there. I don't know, but I can remember going down to that old big store
Really?
about where the fire station is now.
Seems to me that there were a lot of shops. Somebody said there was a pool hall and a barber shop.
Oh, sure. Yes, that's where I learned to play pool. Sneaking up there after grammar school.
Oh, you
My
devil.
mother used to kill me, Bert Tarbox's barber shop.
Uh-huh.
And they had a pool table there.
What did Bert Tarbox look like? Did he have a beard or?
No, very tall, thin, aristocratic, as I remember him. Now, probably he doesn't look like this at all, with a little mustache.
Yes.
And always a neat. Of course, he was an old man to me then. He probably was 30 or something like that, And we'd go down and get our hair cut for 35 cents.
Men, women, and children.
Mm-hmm.
For 35 cents.
Mm-hmm. And then when I'd get out of school, when I was about in the 8th grade, I'd hightail it over there to see if there was anyone around, because I just had to learn to play pool.
Any other girls over there?
Of course not. That's not. My mother used to kill me.
Oh, and still you went and did it.
Sure. She'd say, "Have you been over that pool hall again?" Of course, I never lied in my life, and I said, "Sure." "Well, don't you dare go over there again." Of course, I wouldn't till the next day.
You wouldn't. You'd waited 24 hours.
Sure, because I had to go to school first.
Oh, you devil.
Then downstairs, there was a nice cream parlor. After a while, I don't think it was during that time.
Must have been sort of the social.
But relatives of yours who
Yes.
heard that,
Yes.
I'm sure,
Yes.
from Wayne.
Yes.
Had a ice cream store.
What flavors did they sell? Do you know?
No,
Just vanilla,
no
chocolate, strawberry.
M&Ms,
Yes.
and yeah, and coffee probably.
Really good.
Yeah. Oh yes, we could have a Sunday then, just like the big folks over in Newburyport.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
That's great. They said a fishman came by.
Oh yes.
You didn't need to go out of town.
Well, not really. Used to come, I think, on Wednesdays, and my mother would buy enough to feed us for like 35 cents.
Was it fresh fish or
Yeah.
salted?
No, fresh.
Fresh fish. And then milk was delivered.
Mm-hmm. And the ice was delivered.
And they all
With
go out
the
and get
pan running all over the kitchen floor.
Yes, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. And
meat. You were telling me about your
the
meat wagon.
the old butcher wagon. I have a piece of that home. The last thing that happened to that old butcher wagon, the Epworth League kids were going to have a Halloween party, I think it was, down to Eileen Galvin's, and Harry McGrath was one of the Epworth Leaguers. And Orrin Woodman and he and Bud McPhail and Raymond Woodman, all the boys served as horses and pulled me and I don't know who else down to that party and up over that hill in that old butcher cart.
My goodness.
And, of course, I had to beg my father to let us use it, you know. And then was I in hot water. Because after the party, no matter where we went in those days, we had to go. There was a new diner up in Georgetown, and we had to go and have a hamburger. Now, no matter how full we were or anything else, we always went to Georgetown afterwards with all the boys, you understand, to get a hamburger. So Orrin and me and Harris Rogers and Bud McPhail and Bing Woodman, all those kids, I don't know if they're in, oh, look at that yellow bird.
The goldfinch.
Yes, isn't he gorgeous? And so we left the party probably, close to midnight. I don't know though, Epworth League, it might have been 11 o'clock. And we went to Georgetown. And when we came back, after the butcher wagon, they had taken it down to Great Rock and burned it.
Oh my heavens.
And home in a scrapbook, I have a piece of the old charred canvas stuff that went up over the top.
Oh.
Imagine any fools saving that.
My heavens. And he pulled it with horse.
Yeah, they did, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what did they sell? I mean, what kind of meat?
Any kind, you know.
Is it something, would people call orders in,
No.
or he'd get orders and then he'd deliver it, or he would just...
They would load up in the morning.
Where'd he buy it?
I have no
April,
idea,
Georgetown?
I'm down here. And of course my mother'd be glad to get rid of me, for the day, and of course I love to go on the butcher wagon.
Yes.
And
catch up on all the gossip of the town.
Well, not me, I wasn't that interested then. I just liked being with my father, and he had all these stops.
Yes.
Up along Thurlow Street and over through West Newbury and the Goodriches, and they're the only names I can remember. And you see, everybody had something wrong with that furnace when I got old enough to realize it. All along the way. And my father would come out and say, gee, I almost said her name then up there on Thurlow Street. Her husband's gone to work, and their furnace went out last night, and she wanted me to look at it. Well, I was probably 10 years old before I came to that all these furnaces and all these cellars and so forth, they'd have a little hard cider down in the cellar, and Hayes would have a little nip. Because, of course, that drove my mother bananas. So all along the route, you know.
Do you think the cider was pressed down at the Adams Mill, or?
Maybe up to Freddie Bailey's.
This was on Forest Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd heard about that one. Where is Penny Ornery Spring?
Down the railroad track.
Going towards Newburyport, or?
Yeah. I don't remember now. I was going to say, I'd say offhand about halfway down the best water in the world. Best water in the world.
Can you find it now?
I don't know. I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt it.
Would it be going towards Newburyport on the right or left-hand side? From Byfield Center towards Newburyport?
I can't really tell you. I can't even remember. I never was allowed to go that far away from home, you know. And not when I was young enough to be interested in Penny Ornery Spring.
Somebody told me that it ought to be preserved.
It really should. It really should.
Yes.
I don't even know if it's still there, but there are people around.
A spring would have to.
It's got to be there somewhere, sure.
It's grown up.
But I think there are people somewhere that, who have I heard talk about Penny Ornery Spring when they walk down the railroad track? Somebody that you and I know. So, you know, somebody would know, right, where it was.
Now, somebody also told me that where behind the present post office, there was a brook.
Oh, yes. I've fallen in it a million times.
Now, where did it go from? Over where, say, Teddy Cole is, behind the... No.
No.
And somebody said it was full of wildflowers and a woods back there. It was so pretty.
Beautiful, and this path. And the path would go in where Eben Woodman used to live there.
Yes.
We could go on our bicycles, and then there came this place, I remember this plain as day, where there were trees. Well, there were trees all the way along, but this particular place was like washed out, dug out so that you went down and there were all these vines.
Yes.
And roots. And I can remember one day I had gone down after a loaf of bread, and my mother would say, "And don't you go through the woods." So of course I always went through the woods. It's more fun than a barrel of monkeys. You had to go through the woods, you know, because there were all these roots and stuff, and if you went fast enough, you could kind of jump your bike over it, but if you missed, it was all over.
Yes.
And I missed many times. But this particular day, I dropped the bread in that old mucky water, and I can see that Betsy Ross bread to this day floating along in that one. And you know, 12 cents in those days was 12 cents. And I thought, I don't know what I really did. I probably took the soaking wet bread home and said, "Here, Bert, here's your bread. You know, it's been in the river."
Oh, my.
And I looked down and I thought, what do I do now? You know, I wouldn't have another 12 cents on me by a loaf. And probably she didn't at home, for all I know.
I heard that a Memorial Day was really big in Byfield, bigger than 4th of July.
Oh, sure.
Parades and...
big goings on. And that's another thing, you know. Why, that was the highlight of our careers if we got chosen to speak a piece in town hall. And we always were told, this reminds me of Jeannie. It's we thought we were so smart, you know, if we got chosen.
So what did they do? They had speeches in the town hall, and then I heard they paraded. Was it from the cemetery to Byfield Town, or was it the opposite direction? Did you start off at the cemetery?
I don't know, because the only parades that I ever remember, I think, were about 2. Because during that time, and that was during the war, and during that time, my father had died, and my mother and I were living at my aunt's in Newburyport. And I remember coming up here, and I think I saw one or two maybe parades. But those are the only parades except for the Fireman's Carnival parade that I ever remember of seeing in town.
We were told that Byfield earlier was full of beautiful flowers, and the elms just crossed over the streets. Must have been beautiful.
Yeah, you really wouldn't recognize this now coming into Byfield down Central Streetway.
Yeah,
I said that the other day, if I didn't know what it had been, I would never know where I was.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't. It's so changed.
We were told it was just a garden spot.
Just beautiful, because I think it's still beautiful.
Yes, it's a lovely little town.
I think it's still beautiful.
It's a lovely little town.
And they did cut down my elm tree.
Yes, I know, but it wasn't very healthy.
Not very.
Yes.
Not very.
Do you remember the car barns up by John Salter's? There are pictures of them. They were immense.
Yes, they were. And the car barns over by, well, I call it Esther Seniors, down the lane by Henry Schott's there. And that house that's there, the seniors used to call it Brick Ends. I was going to say, do you remember that? Of course you don't.
Brick Ends.
But that house that's there has the original wall of one of those car barns.
Where precisely is
that
it?
House.
Where precisely is it?
Well, when you go down from my end and go past the old Henry Schott's, that isn't there, it's a nice house now. And it's the next house on your left.
So it's on River
Road? It's on River Street.
River Street, That is interesting.
Yeah.
Goodness, how things have changed. They seem to move houses around a great deal, too. I hear that this house used to belong here and that house was over there.
Yes.
What an undertaking.
And down, there's a house over on Hanover Street that you probably heard about that one, too, that used to be up above me on what is now Chute Road.
No, I haven't. You mean they got it from... I've heard a lot of movement in Byfield, but not from Byfield. All the way to Hanover Street?
Yeah.
That's a long haul.
Yeah.
That's a long ways. Do you remember Scotland Road when it was just a cart path?
Yeah.
Who expanded it? Do you know?
No. And when it got drivable, why... I say everybody, maybe I was the only one in town, but I just thought that was wonderful to have two-wheel tracks, because it's so direct to Newburyport.
Yes. I'll turn it off. We have a picture of a farmhouse opposite on the left-hand side going towards Newburyport. Do you remember a house and a farm there? There is nothing standing there now.
Down Scotland Road? See, I used to go to all those places on that butcher cart. Now, let's see, where did we go? Went to Goodrich's.
We have a picture of Moody Boynton's Bicycle Railroad. Do you remember Boynton?
Yeah, why do I want to think Pipestave Hill?
I think he lived over there, but we're trying
all right. This was his sister then, and
we're trying to get
got
more
to know very, very well because I had a flat tire years ago on Pipestave Hill, and I was scared right out of my mind over there in the dark, and I went along till I saw a little beam light. And I knocked on the door, and it must have been Woody Boynton's sister, because there were two sisters that lived there, and they were the Boynton ladies. And I used to stop in and see them afterwards. I just loved them to death. And they thought I was kind of nifty, because they were old, and they didn't know any better. But they were the dearest, ladies, I just loved them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But I'm sure they're both dead now.
You went to the Yellow School. Who were your teachers?
Of course, Miss Torrey.
Yes, I've heard that she was a real disciplinarian.
She was a real 14-carat school teacher. She lived, boarded, over across where Ann Pearson lives now. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I knew her very, very well. And she would come over across the field when I was out of school, or Ruth was out of school, my sister, and she would have made some custards, or she would have made a little bowl of blancmange, and it would look like a little mountain, you know. And then, you've seen pictures of her, you know what she
I
looked
must
like.
have. Why don't you describe her?
Oh, neatest little old... Want to turn that on?
Can you describe how Miss Torrey looked with her hair in a bun and all?
Yes. She had a big fat pencil roll that went from ear to ear across her forehead. And then it was pulled up in the back into a tight bun. And she had her laced high collar, or what is the name for those things, whatever it is. And an over blouse and a jacket and a big long black skirt most of the time. And high button, I don't know if they were buttoned or tied shoes, but high shoes. And carrying her Boston bag, which held her bran muffin and a thermos of hot water that she would have at lunchtime.
That's all she ate at lunchtime?
Oh, yes. And if there happened to be one of her students that didn't feel well, or she felt hadn't had any breakfast, she'd give it to he or she, too. And then there was one student, who shall remain nameless, who never could get his work done. And she would stay there. He lived down Central Street. And she would stay there till 5 o'clock at night while he was writing out his 3 times 3 = 9.
What grades did she teach?
3rd and 4th.
3rd and 4th.
Mm-hmm.
There were 8 grades in the Yellow School, right?
Yeah.
There's 4 rooms, so there's 2 classes to a room.
Yeah.
Who were the other teachers? Do you remember them? She had 3rd and 4th, so there was somebody for 1st and 2nd.
Yes. Well, of course, there were 2 or 3. Another Byfield girl. She wasn't a Byfield person. Miss Torrey wasn't. But Miriam Cheney Jarvis, you've heard her, I'm sure.
Yes.
She taught 5th and 6th when I was there. And Rachel Muffin Rolfe was the principal, and she had 7 and 8. And I had Miss Goodrich in the 1st grade, but I can't think. Had to be 1st and 2nd. But then after that, you know, as you go along, you still know who these teachers are, and Grace Holton Lunt, Don Darrow, taught 1st and 2nd grade over there. I think it was, yes, I'm quite sure. And Agnes Noyce used to be the principal when... Well, it's hard to remember, you know, because if I was in the 1st grade, my sister Ruth was almost 5 years older than I was. But we were in the building together because I used to cry when I first went to 1st grade. Scared to death the doctor was coming. And the kids got onto this, that it scared me to death, so every day they'd say, "Hey, Shel, do you know the doctor's coming today?" And I'd begin to screech and scream. And the teacher would take me up to the 8th grade room, you see. And my sister would have to push over and let me sit on half her chair rather than they dragging me home. And I'd be a muffling and a crying away, you know. And she'd be so stinking mad at me. She'd go home at noontime and she'd say, I'll tell you one thing. That little kid, either going to stay at home or go to school. She's not come. That embarrasses me when the teacher brings her up to me and I have to push over and let her sit. Oh.
Have you ever heard of the Byfield Tall Hat Club?
No.
Well, we have a
Tall Hat Club.
Remember the bands that the Junior Order of Mechanics had?
No.
No. When did they sell the mechanics hall to the town, do you know?
No.
No.
My grandfather used to be a member of that too. But I don't remember. I do remember when they used to meet down there somewhere. Must have been in town where town hall is now.
They had wonderful minstrel shows and plays and everything in town hall. Do you remember any of those?
Sure.
Who were the stars? Charlotte Cooke.
No way.
No.
One night, Jean Pearson and I did the Charleston.
Oh, fun.
Nobody knew we were going to. We were, this wasn't all that long ago.
Yeah.
We went to Haverhill, took lessons, unbeknown to even our kids. And when we got out on the stage, my gosh, her father was interlocking us. That's the only way we could have pulled it off,
Yes.
Yeah.
Charleston.
Oh, well, that's nothing,
And then
but
somebody said that they had minstrel shows and plays.
Yes, there used to be these people that used to come into town, like one lady or one man, and she would get together this play. I can remember one of them's name. She was Merle Gadbois. Now,
From where?
Who knows? Some New York City,
Theatrical agent?
an agency. That's what I was trying to think of, yes. And she would, I don't know how we knew that anyone was in town, but they must have said it in school or posted it somewhere. And all us would be dancers and stuff would go, and she'd explain it all out to us. And I can even remember some of those songs.
Oh, sing one to me.
Oh, I couldn't. Cradle Snatcher. And another one. Oh, I'm telling you. Well, it was. And it was a chorus line thing. And Phyllis Ewing and Barbara Sr. and the Kent girls, and we all thought this was wonderful. And then, something else that ought to be... Did you ever hear about Frankie Witham's girls' band?
No.
Well, it was the Fireman's Carnival Parade.
Yes. About when?
Oh, God, I probably was 10 or 11.
19...
Probably 1950. Oh, no. Loud, yes.
1930s?
Yes.
1930s. Frankie Witham had a girls' band.
Yes.
What did you play in it?
Well, we all played these bazookas that you hum through.
Yes.
And there were about probably 30 of us girls. And we all had streamers, as I remember. I don't know if there were anything said if anything was, I don't think so. And I would have said it was pink, but I'm not sure. And we all had on white blouses, I think. And if Frankie were here right now, he would tell you that he had heard that when we all went up over the church hill, we sounded like a real band. Nobody could tell the difference. Frankie always would say that.
That was the best.
And
what was the occasion? A fireman's muster?
A fireman's parade. After during the carnival, the Saturday afternoon of the carnival. It always was a big parade here. And I don't ever remember 4th of July or anything, but the the carnival parades, I remember. Lovely.
Did your father or grandfather ever tell you about any local activities? We heard that there was one tree that they called the Armory where Civil War veterans used to sit around and talk.
Really? I never heard that.
Never heard that.
No.
What else did your father or grandfather tell you about the town? The local characters, that big events in town? How about the dedication of the monument?
Never heard a word about that.
No. I remember Fatherland Farm in its heyday, when it really looked nice.
No, I remember when they had horses down there, and I guess I don't know what you'd call the trainer, I guess probably, used to go by my house with these beautiful horses, training them, getting them to the gate and everything. Almost every day in a little two-wheel gig, and those horses would be stepping up. That's all I remember about that place until later years.
How about the mills? Do you remember when the mills burned?
Yeah, but I was a little, I didn't go to the fire or anything, but I can remember seeing it in the sky, I think.
Do you remember the mills themselves?
Yeah, my father used to work down there.
Did you ever go inside?
And, yeah.
What did they look like inside? Lots of machinery?
Yes, a lot of machinery, but that's all. They meant nothing to me, because I was little.
We're trying to track down more information on the watering trough where McKay's live now.
John said yes. Yes.
Do you remember it?
Oh, sure.
Describe it to me.
Well,
it was below Frankie Witham's.
Yeah. About halfway between, I would think, Sue McKay's driveway and Frankie Witham's house there. And it always had yellow tiger lilies all growing up. I guess they're still there.
Around it.
Yeah.
Remember the water in the watering trough?
Yeah. Yep, always green and slimy and moss around the inside of the thing. Always kind of had to play in that a little because that river, one day I came home from school. That was the bane of my folks' life, that river. And let me tell you, you wouldn't dare to take a step, or Ruth and I wouldn't have dared to take a step off that highway to get anywhere near that river. And one day I was walking home from school, and the fire truck is there. That left an awful impression on me, and I still remember it. The firemen were there.
These were Byfield firemen.
And Albert Patch, whom I'm sure you never ever know, had gone through the ice, and he was in that river up to here, and just the ice holding him, and the firemen had ladders, and they were creeping it. That left such an impression on me.
Now, was Albert Patch a youngster or not?
Well, I was old enough to be walking home from school, so I probably had to be 42. Or else we wouldn't have been able, I don't know how else we'd gotten there, you understand, in those days. But my mother and father were old when they had they had Ruth and I, And the grandmother and the grandfather lived there too, and they were worse than my mother and father. And, if you coughed, get Dr. Rocket right over here. And so, boy, that river, no way.
Well, it can be dangerous.
Well, of course, I always drilled the same thing into my own kids all these many years later.
Yes.
After I can still see Albert out there in that water.
But he was safe.
And they did get him.
They did get him. That's wonderful.
Yeah, but that was an awful sight. Plus kids coming home, from school.
Yes. Let's go back to the center of Byfield. So we're going from your house towards the center of town, center of Byfield. What would you come upon first? I heard that there was a store also by that watering trough. Was that there in your day?
No, and I never heard
No?
that
We
there
have a
was.
picture of it.
You do?
Yes, yes. Underneath,
that must
below
have been-
the caves.
Old.
Okay, so we're going from your house down Main Street. You come first to what? Past the blacksmith shop.
Frankie Witham's house.
Well, I didn't mean, I meant businesses.
Oh.
I wasn't making myself clear.
Oh. Well,
The first
Harris Rogers store.
on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And what did that look like?
Pretty much like it does right now. Not, of course, with the apartments out there, but the front part of it looked the way I remember it, that is.
What did he sell in there?
Everything, groceries.
Uh-huh.
And then there was the post office. And then there was Charlie Cheney's store. Have you heard of
Where
it?
would that be located?
That would be where the liquor store is now.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever heard that name before? Charlie
Yes.
Cheney's store.
And above that was the Grange Hall?
Yes, that was upstairs there somewhere. Yep, because somebody I knew on my paper route always would invite me, like, to the Halloween party or whatever they were having. And, oh, what, that was the neatest thing that ever happened, you know.
Why?
A big, why, such a soiree you never saw in your life.
Everyone in
to
costume?
Us little kids, you know, that never got out of town.
Everyone in costume?
Oh, sure. They hung donuts on strings and, you know, did all those kind of things that kids wouldn't be found dead doing now.
Bob for apples?
And we used to think, why, that we'd look forward to that, or I would. Thought that was just marvy.
I heard on Halloween that people were devils in this town.
Oh, yes. Seems to me I heard that somewhere along.
And how they looked.
Well,
Where the gas station is, there was another store.
See, yes, there was, but I don't remember much about that, and I don't know. I think someone told me once there was a drugstore there. Did you ever hear that?
No.
Seems to me that I have, but I can't remember that store over there at all.
So you've got Harris Rogers store, and then
The post office.
the post office.
And then Charlie Cheney's.
And he sold grain, was I told?
As far as I knew, he always sold groceries.
So there were two grocery stores, and the Grange upstairs, and then
And he used to deliver groceries in a pound.
Mr. Cheney.
Mr. Cheney. And we couldn't wait for February vacation to take our sleds, which of course was always another no-no for me. But of course I always did it. To hook our ropes, you know, around the runner, and he'd have 4 or 5 great louts of kids on there and one horse pulling it, you know. And every once in a while, poor Charlie, he'd have a bad day, and he wouldn't want us to be on there. And he'd take his whip down, lean over backwards, but he couldn't quite ever reach us, you know. And we'd stay on there. We gave him an awful hard time, but gee, it was fun. It was fun.
So we're past Mr. Cheney's store,
And that's all it
and
is.
then there was nothing but fields. Then further
And that house that's still there now, that Grace Colby's aunt lived in.
right, Aunt Lydia.
My Aunt Lydia,
Yes.
who has seen me through, her hand is always right there on me.
Why?
Oh, she's seen me through more days. She always liked me.
Uh-huh.
And
I heard
used
she
to
was a
take-
wonderful poet.
Oh, talented lady. And I have an awful lot of wrinkles, but she looked just like an Indian. Did Grace ever tell you that?
No.
I was a little kid taking the Newburyport News,
Yes.
and she had a deep, deep voice, and her face was just and it was brown.
Uh-huh.
In fact, you know, she scared me.
Uh-huh.
Somebody told me that she wanted me to leave a paper there. So I had to go up and walk along that long piazza And I knocked on the door to see if she really did, so I must have been probably 7 or 8, because they wouldn't have let me downtown. I took the Newburyport News for about 120 years, you know. But my mother and father wouldn't have let me down around town if I hadn't been kind of up there. Yeah. But she came to, is it off?
It's on.
Oh, it's off?
On.
Oh, it was over there, yes.
And what was where the present post office is?
Well, when Bill Pearson's store when I was young.
Yes.
Well, when I was real young, it was my grandfather's, you know.
And that was a general store. So you had 3 general stores in town.
Yeah. And over where the ice cream parlor used to be, the Emery's. No, I don't know what they sold in there, but I think they sold groceries at one time.
Competitive.
Yeah.
3 or 4 competitive stores. And then there was a barber shop.
Upstairs.
And a pool hall.
Yes, that was all one.
What was where the gospel hall is now? Was there a building in there?
Yeah, I think that was the bakery, to tell you the truth, that burned. And then they moved that down to Sam Beard's house down on Central Street.
Oh.
And they had a little bakery down there. And I don't remember any other.
So you didn't even have to go out of town to get all of your supplies?
No, they were brought right to. Oh, and then there was Johnny Canepa. Has anyone told you about?
Tell me.
And an open thing with a few bananas and a little watermelon.
This is Ruth Yesair on August 14th, it's not 14th, it's the 16th, 1984. I'm interviewing Miss Amelia Little. Miss Little, you don't have to hold it. Could you tell me a little bit about the changes in the town? Where did you go to school?
Woodbridge.
At the Woodbridge School?
I went a part of a term to the one-room schoolhouse on the Upper Green.
On the Upper Green. It was located on the southern end of the Upper Green?
Wait a minute, it's on the Hanover Street side.
On the Hanover Street. Whatever happened to that schoolhouse?
It was purchased when the Woodbridge was built and was a farm building on, well, it was Mr. Stuart Little's then, which was on Green Street, the old house on the corner. Back of that somewhere is a barn thing or a shed, I don't know.
How many grades were in that school?
Well, I went for a part of the first grade, and I think there were 4. But I was very young.
Who taught at that school?
Well, the first teacher I had name was Miss Cooke, and I think she taught only a short time. And Miss Tilton, who was a really very good teacher, was getting elderly. She taught the upper grades.
And then you went over to Woodbridge?
Yes.
Because they had built that then?
Yes, but it had only 2 rooms then.
Woodbridge had only 2 rooms? There wasn't an upstairs, or?
There was an upstairs, but no back wing, I think, is what's been added.
Ah, that's very interesting. Were 8 grades in that Woodbridge school at that time?
Yes, 4 in each.
And then they went on to Newburyport High School?
Yes.
And was that located on the Mall?
No, it was, I forget, it's the Catholic, owned by the Catholic Church now. It's on the corner of High and Green Street, up the street. And then you had to take the electric cars to the high school? We were allowed to. We had tickets from the town. I used to walk most of the time, and it's just bad weather.
I see.
I often came home on the trolley.
Did you ever ride the Bluebell?
I don't know what the bluebell is.
Somebody told me that
Oh, it's a sled.
it's a sled that used to take children
No,
to
that's
school.
later. That's after my day. Betty
Uh-huh.
Knight has told me about that. I never heard of it from anybody but her.
Oh, that's interesting. We were told about the horses on High Road that your family used to go out west and
Yeah.
buy.
Mm-hmm.
Where did they buy them?
Iowa.
In Iowa. What was the year? Do you remember?
Oh, I couldn't remember any. Oh, it's long, long, long ago. I'm not a bit good on years at all.
Uh-huh. And they went out there to get farm animals. Were they
Yeah.
raw horses?
Yeah.
Wild horses?
Oh, no, they were young, but most of them fairly well trained.
Uh-huh.
And they were work horses, heavy horses.
I see. Better than any that you could get around here, apparently.
Well, there was no place to get them around here. Who had them? Nobody.
I see. Who went out to get them?
My uncle bought them, and my uncle and father took care of them in the barn. There were 20 stalls. 20 came in a freight car.
And what was your uncle's name?
Edward F. Little.
Edward F. Little. And then he would buy them for his own use, or would he then sell some?
There were 20 of them.
Yes.
And we don't use 20.
Yes.
But he would sell them to the farmers round about Hamptons and Rowley and all around.
I see. That's very, very interesting. Did you ever ride the Carlotta
Yes, many times.
down to the bluffs?
Yes.
Could you describe the interior of it?
Of the
Of the Carlotta, yeah.
I have no recollections of the interior. I was always on the deck. Never was in the cabins that I remember.
How long did it take you
Oh,
down to the bluffs?
I couldn't remember about an hour or an hour and a half. I imagine this is from Parker River Landing.
We're trying to get some information about the Plum Island Hotel. Do you...
I remember when it was there.
Yes.
And I was youngish, I guess, but I don't mean a child, but it was not considered a decent place for a decent girl to go. Because they sold hard liquor carried over illegally from the cider mill.
From the cider mill that was located where?
In Newbury, out on the middle road.
Oh.
I think I'm right.
That is interesting. There used to be a toll to go over on the bridge, right? You had to pay a toll.
I don't remember anything about that.
Did you get down to Plum Island when there were no roads down there? Very few cottages.
Well, I had a friend who had a summer place there, and that was Lillian Simpson, and hers was the Simpsons was her uncle Michael Simpson was the little high one up right on the highest dune as you come in. And I used to visit her about once in the summer,
We have been told also that there were peacocks around this Plum Island Hotel.
There were peacocks around the place opposite us. I never knew they were at the hotel.
Oh.
They, Thompsons, and, wait a minute, I'll get the other name, Pfister, but it was that. Johnson was the older man's name, Mr. Johnson, who lived in the square house, which is now one of these harbor houses. I forget what girls, I think.
And there were peacocks there.
Yes, but that's it. And they used to wander over here, but I never heard them of their being at the hotel in Plum Island.
Sounds very exotic to have peacocks.
Well, they were I was told, disappointed New York politicians who came here because they'd enjoyed summer vacations in their families. That house that is now the girls, I think it is, harbor thing, had another story on it, and it was a boarding house originally. And they had come from New York to board, and when their political things didn't work out, they came here to live all the time. And it was a very different atmosphere than rural Newbury. I know that I remember how the house looked. When you opened the front door, which was not in the front of the house, was in the side entrance, the drive was in, you looked directly into the dining room. And Mr. Johnson's brother came to see him from New York. And they were having dinner, or maybe it was called supper for the country, I don't know, dinner probably. And when he came in, the brother from New York, he said, said to his brother sitting at the end of the table, I never thought I would see you at dinner without a dinner jacket.
Oh, my goodness.
So that was very different from rural Newbury.
They were different people.
Mm-hmm. Different backgrounds completely.
Different, yes. What was Plum Island Airport property before it was the airport?
Or pasture.
Just pasture.
Cows pasture.
Cows down there. And do you remember when the first airplanes landed there?
Oh, I don't remember any. I'm very poor on any kind of dates. I wouldn't know.
But was this always an airport from the time that the airplanes started flying in? The airplanes didn't fly any other area in Newbury or
Not
Newbury
that I
Port?
know of.
That's interesting. Did you ever go to the town meeting when the town hall was over in Middle Road?
I don't know. I remember seeing the town hall there, but I don't. Yes, I went once because it was heated by a pot-belly stove. And I remember Mr. Moody, who was the treasurer, when the meeting was dragging on rather slowly, and he arose and said, I move we put wood in the fire. That's the only thing I remember.
That's wonderful. We're also trying to get some more information on Moody Boynton. Do you?
Well, I don't know. He was considered rather possibly, I shouldn't say, unethical in some of his business dealings with the two houses.
He invented a monorail.
So I'm told, but I didn't know.
We have a picture of it, and we're trying to track down where it was built and that
I have
sort of
no
thing.
idea. I've never heard of it till you told me now.
Could you tell me a little bit about the house?
Well, this house?
Yes, it's so lovely.
Well, the grant of land was to a Mr. Spencer, who, with the Mr. Dummer at the academy, was known as one of the two gentlemen of the colony. And he was a bachelor, never married. And there was at that time, so I'm told this is all just tradition, a religious controversy going on about Anne Hutchison. Well, I think Anne Hutchison represented at that time what Unitarianism might now. I'm just guessing at that. I don't know it. But anyway, Mr. Spencer was a supporter or devotee or whatever you call it of the Anne Hutchison's ideas on religion. And the conservative stuffy Newburyites were not in favor of that, so they demoted him from his civic honors, that is, perhaps the head of the militia or something like that. And he felt very badly and returned to England. And his nephew, when he died, he never had children, never married, inherited the land. And he came out here, so I'm told, and either wasted his substance in riotous living or couldn't stand the wilderness and went back. I told that to a friend. He said, why not both? And I don't know, the Pierces then bought the land, and that, I think, was in 1653. And I suppose that they bought it from the nephew of this Mr. Spencer, who was also a bachelor and very young.
The land must have extended very far, way down to Plum Island and...
Well, it went to the Plum Island Turnpike and across the street to the river, but not really to what we call Plum Island now.
Yes.
And it did go at that time, so I'm told, took in straight to Rolf's Lane right down. But I don't, that's just tradition, I don't know if it's right or not.
And did he build the house?
Pierce?
Yes.
Well, there is a dispute as to who built it, the stone part. The Spencers say that their, well, it is an ancestor, but collateral ancestor built it, and the Pierces say they did.
Yes.
In 1653, I think I have that date right. I'm not sure. The property changed hands, and there was a house on the place at that time, transferred. And the Spencers say it was this stone house, and the Pierces say it was an earlier house, and that their ancestors built the stone house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Mm-hmm. When people come see the house and say, my ancestor built it, I pay anyone they want. I don't care.
It doesn't really make any difference, does it? It's really a lovely house. And then the Littles came in where?
Well, I'm only the third generation of Littles.
Yes.
So there were lots of, the time it was really elegant was when Nathaniel Tracy owned it as a summer place.
Mm-hmm.
The public library was their winter home. And at that time, tradition has it that his daughters went to Newburyport from here to school in a coach and four.
Uh-huh.
But that was Newburyport's elegant time of the ships to China and all that.
Yes. Did your parents ever tell you about how it was here in Newbury when they were growing up?
Oh, no, we never talked about that.
You never did?
No.
Do you remember going to, say, Boston on the train?
Oh, yes, that was a big event.
Did you go for shopping or for theater? Or
shopping. Mm-hmm. Once a year in the summer, and I thought that was a big event.
Oh, it must have been really elegant when Boston was in its heyday.
Yeah. Well, it was, we got our new straw hats and our new summer dresses and all that when we went.
And what did you do? When did you buy your winter clothes?
I don't have any recollection of that.
Oh.
Isn't that funny?
And out to dinner at a restaurant in Boston?
Yes, usually Schroff's.
Ah, yes.
The tea room kind of place. Mm.
The old standby. Get into the museums in Boston?
I never went into the museums when I was a child.
Uh-huh.
Our only trips to Boston were shopping ones.
Uh-huh. It is a pretty, pretty town. Somebody told me that Newbury was full of apple trees when a long time ago.
Well, there were apple orchards, I think. Full is a little exaggeration. I think most houses had a few, for their own use. But the Lunts on the hill, Gravel Hill, were the ones that had the big apple orchards.
We have information that Newbury's apples were one of the finest and were shipped to England and all over.
Well, they were shipped, the Lunts always shipped to England, and they were two brothers who lived on Gravel Hill, and I don't know who lives there now, in that whitish house on the left as you get on the top of the hill.
Do you suppose it was a disease that killed them, or was it...
It was the government.
What happened to the government?
Well, the government, they shipped them unsorted in barrels, and the government told them they had to sort them and put them in back boxes and label the sizes.
Oh.
And the Lunts were not to be told what they were going to do with their business, and they cut down the trees.
Oh, my goodness. That's a pity.
Well, the government did it.
Yes, yes. Did you go to Doyle's store here on the Green?
I never knew a Doyle store on the Green.
There was a store that...
Oh, no, not Doyle, Dole.
Dole.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
Yes, that was opposite the Green where the gas station is now. That's where it was located.
Did you go inside?
Oh, yes.
What was it like inside?
Oh, just any general store.
With everything in barrels?
Well, I remember pickles were in barrels and half barrels. Pickle limes were in a glass container on the counter. There was a glassed over section in the counter, but I don't remember what was in it. And that's about all I remember of it, except, regular things on the shelves.
There was another store where the bank is, I was told.
Where, you mean where, opposite the town hall?
Mm-hmm, yes.
I don't remember.
Yeah, well, we were told that. Where would the farm go for their blacksmiths?
There was a blacksmith shop where Ethel Page lives. Do you know where that is?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
there's a man by the name of Little who was a remote kin of ours who had it, and that's it. And it was a white story-and-a-half building. And he was the only blacksmith of the village that I know of.
He was the only blacksmith. That's really interesting. Do you remember the big not the bicentennial, the 300th?
I don't remember a thing about it, no.
You don't remember anything. Do you remember any of the very big storms in Newbury?
Oh, I remember once that we couldn't get out. At the time what I'm speaking of, the fences in the lane were fenced with a wooden pale, 3 layers of palings, whatever you call them. So the snow packed in there quite a bit. And I remember once, I think we didn't get out for 3 days, and I remember once my uncle taking a pair of the workhorses, and we went way out through what we call the front field that's over here toward Riverview Drive to get to the high road.
But most of these farms would be self-sufficient, so you...
Well, we also had a snowplow, wooden snowplow that the workhorses dragged over. It would make a path for driving or sleighing, or sleigh, not a could be sleigh then if we were plowing.
It would be a plow then. We have pictures of road rolling, of them pulling a log.
Yes, well, that was to make it solid for the sleds.
Yes.
But I don't remember that it was ever rolled down here, although I remember we had a roller in the barn. Maybe it was, and I didn't know.
Must have changed life considerably when the electricity came.
Yeah, I suppose it did,
Yes.
Because we had kerosene lamps all around here all my childhood.
Yes. I can remember my grandmother. I remember visiting my grandmother with kerosene lamps and no electricity. This is beautiful beaches.
A beach.
Yes.
Yes, there's only one.
It's a
It's a
beautiful.
copper beach.
It's a beautiful beach. I'm very fond of beech trees.
It's really getting too close to the house, the shade now.
You had lots of cows here. Was this a dairy farm?
Yes, Mr. Noyce next door, who had some but not a large herd, used to take the milk to the market, peddle it from house to house.
Locally?
Yes.
We're told also there was a fishman that came by.
Well, I think sometimes he came down here. His name was Perkins, and he had a horn that he blew when he was coming, a tin horn.
Do you think that he bought the fish, or did he buy it, or
no idea. I know that
Curious.
4th of July once he told my grandmother that the salmon had been swimming in the Pacific Ocean the day before. And that was long before flying, of course.
It sounds a little impossible, doesn't it?
I remember that was told of Mr. Perkins.
I heard that 4th of July they had a great big bonfire on Joppa Flats.
Yes, that was a big event of the 4th of bonfire.
Did-
I don't remember just where it was, except it was up in that end of town.
Did everybody contribute wood or boxes?
I have no idea how they arranged it.
You go down and watch it?
Well, I never watched it from any place but here.
Do you have fireworks on the 4th of July?
Well, the country club had fireworks. That's where the country club is now. And we occasionally, as children, sat on the front fence and watched them. The older members of my family never belonged to country club.
I was told that Memorial Day was as big as the 4th of July here.
Well, I remember at school we always had speeches from GAR members, which we thought were very boring. But I wouldn't know. I don't. Did we have parades? I don't remember.
Well, we were told that. Can you tell me about the town hall the present town hall used to be a Grange hall, didn't
Yes.
it?
Mm-hmm.
2 stories we have pictures of.
Yes, that's right.
What happened to the second story?
I have no idea. My family were never interested in the Grange, and I never heard anything about it.
But the town, did it burn?
I couldn't answer that, but I don't recall that it did, but I don't feel sure.
Uh-huh. Now the society, the parish house for the church down here in Old Town used to be on the opposite side of the street.
That's right, Parker Hall.
Parker Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And it had been a high school, hadn't it?
Well, if it had, it was a few years, because it had been a school, and I think it may have had a year or two of high school.
Do you remember Parker Hall?
Yes, I remember it well.
What was it like inside, say?
Well, plain windows on the side, rows of settees I remember it as Sunday school. That's the only way I remember. And rows of settees, either down the center to face forward, and then in groups over left and right for the classes of the upper grades of the Sunday school. The lower grades were upstairs, and Mrs. Holton was in charge of them. That was the minister's wife at that time, and he was here for many, many years.
It's really too bad that building still isn't standing.
Well, I suppose so. I don't know. It had the staircase was not quite circular, but a little winding.
Sounds as if it should have been preserved.
Well, they didn't think anything about it.
That's too bad.
Back and forth, of course, all the time. And we walked largely to the high school. That is, walked up. We often came home on the trolley.
Uh-huh.
Because we had to go earlier to take the trolley to go to high school. And we preferred to walk in any kind of weather.
Yes. How long would it take you?
I imagine about 22 minutes to half an hour.
So if school was from 9 to 3, you'd leave about...
Well, it was from 7:45, I think. We used to leave fairly early, I think.
Yes, that's...
But not in a heavy rain or snow. Then we'd go earlier still and have to go on the trolley and then wait for school to begin on the other end.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember who was the conductor on the trolley?
Well, who was the fat one? Silas. I used to call him Si. What is it? Noyce, I guess. I don't know. He was very rotund, and with the open trolley cars, do you know what they are?
Yes.
He was quite agile on the sideboards, things going back and forth and collecting fares. But he was quite sizable, and they called him Si. I think it was Noyce, but I don't feel dead sure of the last name.
Were they safe? We have one story about a woman who fell off those open trolley cars and was killed.
I have never heard anything about it until now. The first one I have heard of.
And then in the bad weather, they would lower the curtains and cover them.
That's right. You could, in order to get in, you could sometimes shove up the curtains on its groove. You see, it came in a groove, ran on a groove.
Uh-huh. And the town gave you chits.
Well, I guess so, little tickets. We never used them except in bad weather.
Uh-huh.
We used them coming home, but never going up.
That's interesting. Then from high school, did you go on to...
I didn't go. I went, after a year at home, I went to a year at Simmons, but that was all. I didn't go on to college.
Uh-huh.
Well, of course, a good many from the Newburyport High School went on to college and to the Ivy League colleges too, but not too many from Newbury, I don't think. I don't recall anybody. Agnes Burns, who was in my class and a very good student, went on to normal school at that time, normal school was taught in the Kelly School by I thought I was going to say the teacher's name, although I didn't know him. But anyway, she ran what was called normal classes, I think, for 2 years in the building, which is now the Kelly School. And the students, you see, were practicing on the younger grades there. What was her name? I should know. I can't say it this minute, but I have said it many times recently. Maybe it'll pop into my head. I can't think of it now.
Did you enjoy Simmons?
Oh, I liked it, yes. I took what was a special course then in household economics.
Uh-huh.
But I liked it all right.
Did you go back and forth on the train?
I did it first, and then I stayed up for the rest of the year.
In a dormitory?
In a dormitory. Very early in Simmons' existence then. I think it celebrated its 10th year when I was there.
Wonderful.
So it was very early. And
how many girls was probably very small.
Well, I couldn't say. I imagine perhaps maybe 100 graduated. I don't know. I didn't take the 4-year course, you see, so I didn't see that part of it.
Just a very few buildings.
All I remember is one, but there might have been others.
Uh-huh.
But I couldn't say that whether. Of course, there were others, because there was the main administrative building, and then there was a dormitory building, so there had to be that much. I remember how the administrative building looks still there, I think. But I don't remember the dormitory building much of any.
Do you remember the circus on Parker Street that we've been told about?
Well, I remember the circus. I don't. At one time, it used to be down here on the the Plum Island Turnpike, just opposite our land.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't seem to remember Parker Street. But I don't remember it on Parker Street, I don't think.
We were told that sometimes it was there and sometimes down here in Plum Island.
Well, perhaps it was because Plum Island was near me and I saw it, and I probably didn't go to it when it was on Parker Street. I don't remember attending a circus. I remember the parade that always went in the morning. But I don't remember. I remember later they had a dog show, sort of, little performing dogs, and I was taken to that, I remember.
Uh-huh.
That was down here on the turnpike.
Do you remember some of the local shows? We were told that they often had minstrel shows, local people performing.
Minstrel shows were not considered good entertainment by my family. I never was allowed to go to a minstrel show.
I see.
That would be crude.
I see. What would your entertainment have consisted of?
Playing at home.
Playing at home.
In the barn, and friends came and played with us, so we played all kinds of games in the barn.
Yes. And you probably had lots of animals, pets, dogs and cats.
Well, dogs and cats. We didn't have any other pets that I remember.
Did you make pets of the horses?
Well, we always had a family horse that we children could pet or drive or harness, but that was the only way, I think.
Uh-huh.
Until perhaps I was older when I rode some. But I was never, I would call it a pet. It was just a horse to ride.
Uh-huh. What was his name?
I couldn't tell you. One was a sort of bronco, one was calico, whatever was there that we could ride.
Uh-huh. Well, that's interesting.
Oh, Great Ann was the family horse.
I see.
But I don't, he was for years and years and years, but I don't remember the horses that I rode, whatever their names were.
What did this family farm specialize in? Truck farming, was it? Vegetables or dairy?
Dairy, and then my uncle used to bring horses from the west to sell to the farmers around here. So there was the stable that burned had 20-odd stalls in it.
And he did the training?
Well, there was very little training. They were trained enough. They were all workhorses.
Uh-huh. Did he tell you about going out there? It must have been difficult to go out there?
Well, I never heard anything difficult about it. The place was Fayetteville, I think, Iowa. I know it was Iowa, and I think it was Fayetteville, but I'm not sure. I know the man who took him around there to the farms to buy the horses came on once to visit. He couldn't get over the tide came in twice a day. That's all I remember about him.
Oh.
Drove my uncle around there when he was buying the horses. Couldn't get over that the tide went out twice a day.
Yes. Well, I'm sure that if we went out west, we would be surprised at some things that they considered normal.
Yeah. Well, I remember one young woman came. I think she was the daughter of somebody that my uncle knew out there. And she thought we had the shortest view she ever saw.
Yes. I can understand that, having been west several times. Big skies are not here, but we have things to compensate, I think. Were the greenheads as bad as they are now? We were told, I've been told one thing and then the opposite thing.
Well, I remember the horses coming back from cutting hay down here on the, across from the pasture on the meadow there. They're coming back streaming with greenhead bites.
Oh, dear.
And they were awful.
Oh, dear.
That's one thing I was very glad when the machinery was mechanized.
Yes. Did this farm do salt marsh haying also?
Yes. They took the men, we almost always had 4 hired men, so-called, down, built and put up a tent way down on, well, Cedar Point Meadow, but I couldn't direct you to it. I know about where it is.
On Plum Island? Or?
Yes, Plum Island.
Yes.
But it came this way toward the river. It wasn't the front of Plum Island at all, it was the back of it.
And they would go down and do the salt marsh haying. Then they would go back in the winter and bring it out.
Take it off the river, and that would be down at Pine Island. That's where they crossed the river.
I see. Do you know anything about the halfway house on Plum Island?
Well, I just know that it was there when I was growing up and a child, and it was the Newbury slum district.
Who lived in it?
Well, it was unoccupied a great deal of the time. The antecedent of the present Graf family, whose name was Graf, came over with his family, and that would be Bill Graf and his brother's grandfather. And we were told that he was leaving Austria to avoid military duty. And he then, I guess he came over with his family, I think there were 5 children, and with no money. And he lived at the halfway house first, which was very rugged. And then when he got going here with a job and everything, he moved up into town. I don't remember where they lived after that. But there were 5 children in that, of his next generation. Don't remember his wife, because she must have come with him. I guess she never stepped foot out of the house hardly, but I don't know.
We were told that this has been for people at this end of town an identifying point at Plum Island. You'd say down below the halfway house?
Oh, that might easily be, I don't know.
Yes. And we were told that it had a well that they often watered horses.
Well, that might be, because it would have to have a well to exist for the family.
Yes.
Of some kind.
Yes. Well,
I don't remember. I've driven down when the men were down there haying. I've been with my father, take them their meals and so on, food for a day. But I don't ever remember watering a horse there, but I might have.
So would they camp down there for, say, a period of 4 or 5 days?
Yes, just about that, I think.
I see. And they do it all by hand?
Oh no, they had the horses in the machines.
pull the machines.
Yes, the machines went down on a flat-topped wagon. I mean, it was just an open wagon. 2 machines, and I think they only used 1 horse on the middle. And they had to wear big boots, you know.
Yes, bog shoes.
Yes. But I think they only had 1 horse to a machine then, because they used 2 up here. So I think the 2 horses were hitched side by side or a pair in these wagons to take the stuff down.
That's interesting. Do you feel like you're a tourist attraction?
Well, we're saved by being off the highway.
Yes.
Other than that, we would be, I'm afraid.
Yes. But it's something to be proud of also.
Well, it would be a great nuisance if the house were in sight of the highway, I think.
Uh-huh.
Great nuisance, especially in the summer.
Yes. Were you part of the group that started the Historical Society?
No, not particularly. I've always belonged to it, but I didn't start it. Mr. William Little down the lower road was the one who started it.
Uh-huh.
He lived in the brick-ended house where Michael Little lives in one side and his mother, Susan, in the other.
What relation is he to you?
Oh, remote cousin of some kind.
I see.
I forget. I have a friend who believes, I think she's got it down to 3rd cousin once removed or something like that. They know. We were all descended from the original immigrant, but it's a long way apart.
Did you belong to the local pen and ink society?
No. I knew people who did. I know Miss Sarah Mulligan's the only one I knew who belonged to that.
How is the green changed? Is it just about the same?
About the same, except, as I say, for the little schoolhouse that used to be on it. Always had a pond. Not always ducks in the pond, but always a pond. And we children skated on there every winter.
The Ridge School, who went to the Ridge School?
Well, it was a division, geographical division that cut across this way, do you see?
I see.
And the middle group went to the Ridge School.
I see.
The Ilsley's now, and where Mary Gold lives, they went to the middle school.
So there were 3 at this end of town. There was one on the Upper Green, the Ridge School, and there was one at the one that they restored in the Lower Green.
Yeah, and the Ridge was the middle, and just sliced across the town that way.
I see.
It was just local one-room schoolhouses. That's what it amounted to.
Was there competition between the 3 schools?
No, I don't think so.
You would play with children from all of the 3 schools?
Well, I didn't get down that far. I played with this local group mostly.
Yes.
In fact, I mostly played at home with my own family because there were enough of us to make playing. There was no, we walked to school. There was no bus service or anything like that of any kind. You
had a large family?
There were 5 in my contemporaries. I'm the only one left now. My brother was younger and the 3 sisters were older.
So you had somebody to play with. And then on a farm there's always chores to do.
Well, we girls only had chores inside the house. My brother had to bring in wood for the kitchen fire. And there was one man who lived right opposite, a boy who lived right opposite where Helen Noyce has recently died, across from the end of the lane. He almost always played with us because he had just one brother, quite a bit older, at home to play with. So our family here in Walter Noyce, or Quake as we called him, used to play regularly in the barn. And we had one semi-relative. He was an in-law's grandson or something like that, whom we didn't enjoy. And he'd come down to play with us in the barn, and we'd play with him a while, and then we'd all hide and to watch out the upper barn window, see when he went up the lane, which was very cruel, but that's what we did.
That's what children are cruel. Did you have a lot of visitors in the summertime?
Well, our visitors, if we had them, were only in the summer, because nobody came here in the winter to visit us. Of course, we just had coal stoves around. And my cousins from Fitchburg, that's on my mother's side, used to come. When they got older, were younger than now. But I don't remember any other visitors except relatives, do I? I don't think so.
Such a large house, I can see it full of visitors in the summertime because of...
Well, we occupied all the rooms by ourselves. We had to move over to let them in.
Yes.
Either give up a room or we used the little, I don't know if it's a birthing room, but that way behind the bookshelves there was a door that went into the little room behind. And we children used to love to be allowed to sleep down there on a haircloth sofa opened to make a bed of bumpy excelsior under canvas. But we thought it was fun, but it was very hot. It was not comfortable, I remember that.
Yes. Did you enjoy school?
I like school all right. I like vacation better.
Who was your favorite teacher? We've been told that a lot of the teachers here were very popular.
I don't know. Miss Lowell was Jenny Lowell was the most able teacher I ever had. She never would arouse affection. She wasn't that kind.
Yes.
So I don't know what I could say to answer that.
And your cousin, Miss Little, was one of the most beloved teachers in the high school?
Eleanor Little, yes. I imagine so. Of course, she was never my teacher. In fact, I guess that she was teaching after I was there. If not, there was very little year, there might be a year overlapping.
Mm-hmm.
But she taught after I was there.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you were ill, you would, the doctor would come here. What was the doctor's name?
Wait a minute. I remember once when I was little, I don't know, that measles or mumps or something like that, and I turned my face in the pillow when he came, and I was reproved for that afterwards. I will be able, I think, to think of his name because I know it. Young.
Dr. Young. Dr. Young. And then if you were very ill, of course, Anna Jakes is close by.
Well, it wasn't that. There was no Anna Jakes when I was a little.
No Anna Jakes.
I don't think so. I certainly didn't know it of course, it was down on Broad Street first, the Anna Jakes.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the big elm on Parker Street?
Yes, I do. Mm.
That was in front of her home. I was told, the Jakes' home.
Yes, it was. Mm.
Was it as beautiful as the pictures show?
Well, I guess so. I mean, it was a huge elm. That's all I remember about it.
Blew down in a storm?
I couldn't answer that. Whether it fell, it was very old and big,
mm-hmm.
and I know it was not cut down arbitrarily. It had to be removed, but I don't remember what happened to it.
The elm disease that decimated so many of the elms in New England. Were there many elms around this end of town?
Oh, I don't know. I think there were quite a few on the street between up where the maple trees around the pond around there. I think those were elms. And I think in Newburyport, going up High Street, I think they touched over your head in an arch.
Oh.
I remember that. I think.
Must have been beautiful.
I don't think I'm fooling myself on that.
Must have been beautiful.
Yes, it was a canopy, really. Mm.
What shops in Newburyport would you have patronized, your family? Would most things have been brought out to you, Staples? Would you phone the grocer and he'd bring them out to you?
No, he came around with a horse and a wagon and took orders in the morning and then delivered them in the afternoon with the same horse and wagon. And that would be twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, I think.
Do you remember his name?
Joe. Mm.
The same Doe